All right, folks, let's call this meeting to order. The September 13th, 2021 Village of Flower Hill September board meeting. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Rich, lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd ask everybody to please stay standing for a minute. This past weekend was the 20th anniversary of the September 11th terrorist attacks. So let's just take a moment of silence to remember those that we lost due to the events, the acts of terror that day. And just a moment of silence for those military and law enforcement members who, in the war on terror after, who also sacrificed so much for us. All right, thank you. All right, Ronnie, I think we had talked about two public hearings that were adjourned until next month.
So I just want to mention to the board that we had two public hearings scheduled. One for the definition of court proper, the other was for definition of a home office. And our village attorney, Mr. Waco, had completed a new version of the home office that was sent to you. However, we were not able to get the diagram and the rewritten version of the second law, which was the corner property. So to avoid having to have start for appear this month and next month, I'd like to have someone offer a motion to adjourn both of those hearings on local law C and D to the October 4th meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's do the approval of the minutes.
Anybody have any comments or corrections? And if not, could I have a motion for approval of the minutes of the August meeting?
I'll make the motion.
And a second by trustee Frankel, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the claims, take a moment to review. If there are any questions?
Suzanne, I have one quick question. You paid it twice?
Is it on the thing twice?
It's July and then August.
I have to check it because I don't have it in front of me.
And I'm sorry, I should have emailed.
Because the meeting was delayed this month, is that why maybe it's on there? We captured two bills from them, maybe?
No, because we usually pay it like once a year. I know it was on the credit card and then we may have been billed for it.
Okay.
So I have to confirm that.
It's on the first half of the first page.
On the September,
Yes,
Abstract.
yeah. You'll see the last line in the middle, 410, and the two lines up 410. Again, my apologies, I saw it before and I didn't have a chance to email it.
all right, so why don't we do approval except for constant contact? And we will find out, what the issue with that is.
All right, I'll make that motion then to approve as stated by Ronnie Shetsky.
All claims approved except constant contact.
I will second that.
I'm sorry, do I have a second?
The mayor.
I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, ARC report.
ARC report for August 23rd. A couple returning applications, 40 Fernwood Lane. Still had a number of comments. This has been before us several times. We asked them to return for next month. 150 Elderfields Road, this is their second time back, asked for some renderings, and that was approved as submitted.
I'm sorry, what is the project?
150 Elderfield.
What are they doing?
Additions, it's incorrectly shown as a new residence. It's additions and alterations.
Approve the comments?
Approved with comments.
Okay.
No, approved as submitted.
Oh, residents, okay.
264 Northwoods, that's a new residence. That was approved for the architecture. We did have a meeting on that, site meeting regarding tree and landscaping, and there was one correction where we asked for another tree. So that was approved with those conditions. 63 Middle Neck Road, additions, portico, rear covered patio, exterior alterations. Although we had a number of comments, they're very specific, so it was approved with those conditions for your approval here. 53 Country Club Drive is a new applications. Swimming pool patio, boulder retaining wall fencing. One comment to adjust the boulder retaining wall clearance tree, and that was approved with that condition. 75 Port Washington Boulevard rooftop solar system. We wanted the solar panels only to be on the rear of the roof, not on the front of the roof on that application. So that's returning for next meeting. 19 Birchdale, new siding and stone facade. We had a number of comments about the trim and the siding. The owner actually subsequently came in. He's going to comply with all those. We are still just waiting for the stone selection. So it's approved with that condition, and the stone selection will be distributed to the board for approval. 1063 Northern Boulevard, which is the Dunkin' Donuts part of the Joanne's Pizza property there. They had signage and a new facade. That was approved, but it's subject to Joanne's Pizza doing a similar facade treatment, that the building be consistent. Right now, the whole building has a mansard roof. They're coming in with a sort of a flat panel that goes around the Dunkin' Donuts, and we're asking for that to be consistent for Joanne's, which I was told is going to be coming in shortly, but that's a subject to approval on that. And I think that's what we had for the August 23rd.
I have a question on 1063 Northern Boulevard.
Sure.
Because the other tenant is discussing adding additional seating area from initial conversations, are they going to be okay with the current amount of parking spots, or is there going to be?
I don't have a plan yet, so I don't have a plan, so I don't know what.
So the reason I'm asking is, should we not approve this 1063 Dunkin' Donuts until we have the other plan, so we can look at everything as one package when it comes to that very small parking lot?
We could do that, or the spaces that Dunkin' Donuts have, leave only so many spaces left for Joanne's. That's the other way.
I just want to bring up a point. Our code requires that all commercial building projects be brought before the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees serves as like a site plan review. I mean, is this something that perhaps the board should look at? I'm just concerned about parking because that always turns into a nightmare.
It does feel a little like putting the cart before the horse. Putting the sign in before we actually see the full ramifications of all the changes being made to the site. I think there's also a drive-through window that's being proposed in the plans.
It's not a drive-through.
It would just
What is
be
it?
really helpful for the future.
They had a walk-up window. It was a walk-up window for COVID now, just in case it comes back. There was no parking spaces taken out for that.
But just I want to say that for future, for future reference, it's good to have a written approval for these commercial properties, so you know what is allowed and what isn't allowed. Because otherwise it's, well, what did they say at ARC? Who knows? There's no record.
Well, there's no changes. This isn't a site plan change.
There's never been a site plan, I believe, a written approval for that property. Oh, no, there has been, and I believe it's like in 1973.
And it's changed since whatever that approval was. I mean, the things that have been done there have been done over time and accrued over time, so.
Honestly,
probably
since we're
it doesn't
having
even-
other issues with the
So
property.
I do think there's a
maybe
property that we
to
need to
slow
get.
down rather
Yeah,
than
I
speed
think
up.
we need to get a handle on it, because I think, if we just give them incremental approvals, then we're gonna end up with
Yes.
something that's probably still a mess. Because it is a mess right now.
All good points. Outside of these comments, is there anything else on this application that you wanted to go over, Peter?
No, I mean, they're making interior changes. Joann's is taking over some of the space that Baskin Robbins was there, so they're gonna be increasing their space with their proposal when it comes in, so. I mean, if you wanna look at it globally for the whole thing, that's,
Yeah.
that'll accelerate Joann's getting their plan in, because we did make it conditional upon that, so we can make it now, get it in and we'll look at it together, and that will accelerate his process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's better to look at this property as a whole than in bits and pieces. And that will ensure that we get the past stuff that's been an issue back in compliance. So let's take 1063 Northern Boulevard out of the report now.
I also had some questions on 63 Middle Neck Road. I wasn't at the AFC meeting, so Peter, I think that a couple things, and I don't know, maybe it wasn't for that forum, and it's better in the forum of the Board of Trustees, but I think there were a couple things that I was concerned with. One was considering that we are taking over Middle Neck Road, and there's a long-term idea that we want to make improvements to that road. The right-of-way and encroachments into the right-of-way by residents, fences and things, I think we want to be very mindful of. And so whenever a Middle Neck Road bordering property comes up, I think we should take a careful look at if there are any kind of encroachments into the right-of-way. So I don't know, I couldn't make sense out of the survey if it showed.
Well,
fence.
so this went to zoning.
Yeah.
So what it went to zoning for was they did a second floor over the existing footprint.
Right.
So there's no further encroachment towards Middle Neck Road.
No, I'm saying if there's existing conditions on a property that are not code allowed. In other words, if they already had an existing, I think we just want to be mindful when we have applications of this sort, when it's a fairly significant alteration, that there's nothing else on the property that is not according to code or to, or violates property line.
I believe the zoning board told them to get rid of a shed or something like that, to move something that was in the right of way, not the right of way.
Okay.
I mean, zoning
Hold
is,
on. Gary, is there something specific on this property that?
I don't know, I'm just saying is that I think it would be good, I think it would be good practice for us to be mindful that we just don't take these reviews as what they are for face value, that there is other issues in the property that we address those while we're dealing with the permit, because then at least you have a, some
leverage.
well, I mean, I guess.
leverage, or at least
Are you putting in higher standards of the Middle Neck Road properties? I mean, it goes, when any application comes in, I do a zoning review.
Right.
So in this case, there was a zoning denial. It went to the zoning board. They looked at, they looked at the whole property too. So, I mean, are you asking for any more?
All I'm asking is that we
review
just
other than-
double check that if the survey says it's, lawful, that it is lawful.
Yeah, well, again, I apply the zoning code to everything I review.
I mean, physically, as opposed to what a paper says, that we'd be mindful of.
Okay.
Physically, right. And I don't even know how we would do that, but I just think that it would be, because I do think we're gonna run into issues where if we are gonna try to do some improvements along that road, where there's gonna be fences in the way of.
The good thing about this property, because I know the property pretty well, it's actually set back very far off Middle Neck Road. There's actually a very large area, if you're ever talking about doing the walking path or anything. This is the most perfect spot.
Okay.
So this property that they have.
Fine, if
all the fence, it's as far back, actually, people do park there at times.
Right.
It's very well.
Okay.
Gary, I can
It's a
think of
good
one
call.
example that maybe is to your point, is that, there have been some drainage pipes that are run, from properties that are run onto Middle Neck Road, and,
Right.
care or whatever.
Right.
That sort of thing,
Yeah.
and sometimes it doesn't show up on a survey
Yeah,
that they just put in,
right.
so.
Okay. All right.
No, it's a good call. Let's be mindful of it as we go forward. But for this specific property, there's not a particular issue with it.
No, I don't know of any,
Okay.
I don't know a specific issue.
All right.
There is one.
Good call, Gary.
And then I wasn't sure, I had the question on tree removals. Are there gonna be any tree removals at 63 Middle Ave?
I don't believe so. I don't have the plan in front of me, but I don't believe so.
All right.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the architectural review report minus 1063 Northern Boulevard? I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Rich? Your turn.
Well, Steve can't be here, obviously.
Yes, Steve is ill.
So we're planning on paving tomorrow Woodland. One side of Woodland's gonna be paved, most likely it's gonna be the north side. That's what they told us, it could change, but either way, they're only gonna pave one side of the lane tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, they'll pave the other half. They also understand that Wednesday, we have a holiday, so they'll be done by 3:00. 3:30, they should be hopefully done, and we haven't got a schedule yet for the rest of the roads, Greenbrier, Hewlett, or Country Club. Besides that, I don't know if Steve wanted to talk about whether the whole Stony Town thing, but that's.
Yeah, I'll take that with, I guess, Peter, and just for everyone's knowledge, there was the landslide in Stony Town during the storm. There are two properties we walked it with, the other day with Peter, Rich, Steve, Randall, Ronnie. We had half the village out there, and Robert. I don't know, for some of you who are on the board for a while, you remember this property that was subdivided. Frank, you were out there right after the storm, so thank you. So there are a couple issues there that the lower homeowner on Stony Town address will have to take care of. Peter, you followed up with them at the end of last week, and then after we walked the property, we saw there were some kind of potentially contributing issues from Knowles Lane property up there. So Peter's working with Steve, they're going to get a communication out to the two property owners on things that they need to address going forward to stabilize the hillside there, both where the landslide was and to ensure the land above the house is not a danger to that house. Did we hear anything back from the engineer on certification of that wall or?
Well, I just got the draft from Steve today, so I was going over that. I'll be going over it first thing in the morning. Just want some clarifications on it. We sort of separated out things we wanted done immediately and things we wanted engineered for review. So I want to go with Steve, just to clarify that.
That's fine. We told the engineer on Friday, right, that we
Yeah.
wanted him to certify the stability of that wall
Right.
of the house, right? So that should be happening without getting that letter, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's make sure we follow up with him first thing in the morning. I want that tomorrow.
I mean, they seem cooperative, and what we
Yeah.
want to do is get nine no's at the top, an engineer involved from that side, and then sort of a combined solution.
Definitely. So thank you to everybody who has put time and effort over that over the last 2 weeks. It's much appreciated. All right, Ronnie?
Okay, first I just wanted to remind the trustees that on Friday morning at 11 a.m., we're going to have a dedication of the community garden in memory of Mayor McNamara. So I hope you'll all be there. Next is that every year we authorize a court grant resolution that enables us to ask the state court system for various and sundry items to help our court, and we have to do a resolution. Resolution is not this one. I'm sorry. Okay, the resolution is, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Flower Hill hereby authorizes Susan Williams, Village Justice Court Clerk, to apply for JCAP grant funds in the 2021-22 grant cycle. So if I could have a motion for the resolution. And have that from Trustee Franco. And a second. Trustee Janine, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The other resolution that I have is to authorize an RFP to seek the services of an auditor. And if needs be resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Village of Flower Hill authorizes Village Administrator to issue an RFP for auditor services to the Village of Justice Court. So, if I could have someone go for that resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, and I saw Trustee Dorfman seconded. Okay. And that is RFP. Okay, next.
Ronnie, we need to vote on those, on that one. All in favor?
I'm sorry.
We need to vote on.
On the RFP, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, and the next item, is removed from the agenda, it's not gonna happen.
Sorry, Rich.
Yeah, and that's it for me.
Yes, Deb. All right, Steve, Jeff, I know sent a DCA report for everybody. There was one property, on it.
Yes, Mayor, would you like me to read the report?
Go ahead.
It's not long. It's regarding the application of Mr. Andrew Grabiner, 59 Chestnut Road, for a variance of section 240-11C in order to maintain a proposed floor area of 4,095.04 square feet with a floor area ratio of 0.3258, while the maximum permitted floor area is 4,022.4 with a floor area ratio of 0.32. In this matter, the applicant proposes to construct a new master bedroom and bathroom which overhang the first floor in the front and back. The request is deemed minimal. The board found the application to be in compliance with the applicable criteria to be met in requiring a variance and approve the application.
Thank you. The next item, that we have on the attorney's report is probably something we need to speak with Mr. Bringle about, and that was the update to the wireless antenna law. And I know he was working with outside counsel on that.
Actually, I have a brief report on that as
Oh,
well.
thank you.
Mr. Blinkoff spoke with Mr. Ross, who indicated that there's no update for tonight. However, he did mention that he is planning to suggest code changes in the future.
Thank you.
Just one other update there. We did come across a case, one of the other attorneys working on, for the other villages, was talking to our attorney. There was a new case, August 13, 2021, a U.S. Court of Appeals Circuit Court, I think this is, found that FCC had arbitrarily and capricially determined that its current guidelines had adequately protected against the harmful effects of RF radiation unrelated to cancer as it related to cell phone antennas. So there's obviously a lot more to the case, but it was an interesting decision that our attorneys are looking at. I don't know if it'll have an impact on our case, but just wanted everybody to know what's out there. They're keeping track of the cases that are out there around the cell phone antennas to see if it's going to impact our case positively or negatively or not. So just so everyone's aware, there was a recent case in that area that they're reviewing. All right.
Okay, Mayor.
So Hurricane Ida, we went over the landslide, just for everybody's awareness, I know a message went out to the community. Nassau County did get an emergency declaration from FEMA. So if folks, their insurance didn't cover items or they were underinsured, if they got displaced and had to rent a room for a couple of nights, there is FEMA aid out there. We put some information up on our website. We sent a link out to the community. If anybody needs the information, call Village Hall. Ronnie can get you the link via email. But there is the opportunity for residents to potentially get aid to defer some of their costs from the damage caused by Ida. The village will also be pursuing potential funding through that as well for some of our costs that we're incurring. So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Any questions? No? Okay. The following, last month we had talked about COVID vaccine policy and potentially having our staff test. Ronnie, I know you looked into that a little bit. So from a village perspective, we have 100% of our employees are now vaccinated. So this is really a forward-looking policy. I think we should have something on the books, moving forward, just given the situation. So I think you looked into what some other villages have done and municipalities, and just update the board on kind of the information they were looking for.
Okay, well, most of the smaller villages have no policy, but I did talk to Mineola and Freeport, and they have both instituted the policy. There are two policies on the sheet that I included in the packet, and they both have instituted either being fully vaccinated or requiring a weekly test and wearing of masks. The second suggested policy is just that everyone must be vaccinated unless there's a medical reason for not being able to receive one.
And Mayor, I have a suggestion with respect to that second part.
Okay.
And I apologize for not mentioning it earlier, but I've just seen this. I'm concerned that the law may develop, that the law is that you cannot impose that requirement over a religious objection.
Okay.
I don't know whether that will be the case, but in order to protect the village, I would suggest that the language be medical reason or other hardship, or other hardship reason, to
Okay.
give the village the flexibility of dealing with the circumstances as they may develop.
I have a question. Is there a higher power that we could defer to? In other words, we're a municipality, but do we follow what Nassau County does? Do we follow what the state does? We are all wearing masks. Whose decision was for us to all wear masks? I really don't, is that just because everybody here feels better that we're wearing
No,
masks?
I mean,
But is there,
when
no,
it's done-
I'm not making light of it, I
Yeah.
really would like to know.
There are
So
CDC
I hear you,
Yes.
but I'm saying rather than us go through all the minutiae of whether, what is a religious exemption? And there's a big controversy about what qualifies and what doesn't. It opens up a can of worms, that's why I'm asking. Is there a higher power that we can say, we're following Nassau County's guidelines, we're following the New York State? So whose guidelines are we following? That's my
CDC.
question.
CDC.
CDC, but
But who makes them the where, not every, so we're just deciding as a village that the CDC is like the know-all, and then we're saying you have to be vaccinated because the CDC says that.
the law is evolving.
Right.
The law is evolving as the crisis evolves.
Right.
So as of now, you are the final authority for the in conditions of employment in your village.
Right.
And that may change. There may be executive orders issued by the governor. There may be there may be legislation adopted by the state legislature. All of that may occur, but as of now, your personnel policy is determined by this governing body of the village.
Okay, I just wanted to understand where it was coming, so.
There are guidelines that are influential and that are wise to follow. But the ultimate authority is yours.
So, listen, we don't necessarily have to decide this tonight, but I think, you know, for the safety of all the employees, the residents, we should get a policy on. You know, right, the federal government is now saying employers over 100 employees need to implement, vaccine requirements, and, you know, we're seeing the state, to your point, villages are starting to do different things. Luckily, it's kind of a moot point for us. However, I think it's important to just have something on the books so we know going forward, if someone leaves, a new person comes in, everybody knows kind of what they're getting into, right? There's transparency for our residents and for everybody working here. So, you know, I think for simplicity's sake, doing the second policy of proof of vaccination unless there's a medical reason or hardship, I think it's aggressive, but I think it would be the best policy to go with from my perspective. And I know that may not be the same for everybody here. So that's why I want to get everybody's feedback on this. Obviously, we want more information or research, we can do that, but I don't know, how do other people feel about this?
Who decides if somebody's medical reason is enough, or if it's, you know, or if somebody's,
Well, they would need something from a doctor that says they're.
so could it be like a chiropractor, could it be any doctor, or a medical, could it be, just saying, like, you know, anybody can marry somebody these days, right? You could become a universal whatever, pretty easily by filling it out online. So could somebody go to and say, hey, this is my religious exemption by this universe? I'm just saying, that, because this
The
stuff
Board
does
of Ed
open
came
up.
up with what I thought, the Board of Ed, the Teachers Union came up with, New York City Board of Ed, was what I thought was a pretty reasonable guidelines. And on religious exemptions, that they look to the leaders of that religion, and if the leaders of that religion were recommending vaccination, then you could not be exempt for religious reasons. And I mean, as far as a medical exemption, you would have to have some kind of a note from a licensed physician with a reason. You know, I mean, you can't just, say, well, Johnny is exempt because I said so. It would have to be pretty much of a good reason because he's allergic to these components of vaccine or,
And that's what.
I wouldn't accept just like a
I'm just saying, so
statement.
who's the governing, is it us? Do we
Yes.
vote at a,
No,
it's like
me,
a
it's an
separate policy,
administrator.
but the
Yeah.
village administrator would be the one.
Gotcha.
And in my mind, if it's a licensed medical practitioner in the state of New York, right, I don't think we're gonna sit there and say, all right, you went to, your OBGYN as opposed to this type of doctor, and this doctor, listen, if it's your doctor and you're a licensed medical professional, I think.
Yeah, I'm not gonna take it from an acupuncturist.
I don't think we can dictate.
We should I just wanna know who
Dentist is
tells
a, dentist is a licensed
Yeah.
medical professional. I don't think we should accept from the
Yeah,
dentist.
no,
But
that's-
you're going to make rational and reasonable decisions based upon the facts that are presented to you at the time that you have to make the decision. And as in every decision that is made by a local municipality, ultimately it's subject to judicial review. But the first line of the decision making is with the village. And, the appointing authority, the supervising authority will make these decisions initially. And one would hope and expect, and experience demonstrates that those decisions will be made reasonably and rationally. And if they're made reasonably and rationally, the likelihood is that they will withstand the challenge. Now, again, the law and, experience will evolve, and the law will evolve. And there'll be more clarity moving forward into the future. But right now, you have to rely upon the wisdom and good judgment of this board and its staff to make these decisions.
So listen, this is not something, like I said, this is something we have to rush into, so I think we can hold off on this for another month. Everybody think about it, let's ask questions, let's, obviously the federal mandate just came down, so I think we'll be learning much more out of that. But I just wanted to get it back in front of everybody, answer the questions that were raised at the last meeting. You know, let's try and, I think, get something on the books. I know with this one, it's a different situation. Like I said, what's our policy on other vaccines? Well, most other vaccine policies are set because everyone goes to school. You're not dealing with this issue at this age usually. This is because we have a new virus on the forefront here. So let's think about it, and we can talk about it at the next meeting. If anybody has questions or concerns, please feel free to raise them. All right, trustee reports. Any updates from the trustees?
Anybody? Mary Jo, did you have to?
Yeah, just two things, briefly, the signs that are still on, can we get those taken down? Enough is enough.
Okay.
You know, it's been a year and a half, are they serving any purpose? Thank you, healthcare, I get it, but they're kind of an eyesore, and as we're thinking about, unless, nobody else agrees.
I was gonna bring the teddy bear back. I
So
would have missed it so much.
how do we get those
I
taken
think
away?
Let's first, I think, talk to the residents that they're behind and just make sure it's not part of their property or something.
Looks like it's on the right of way, you know, they're like facing.
It is in the right of way, but I think just out of respect for those homeowners, if they put it up, let's just talk to them first and make sure that they're comfortable. with the optics.
One of the signs was refurbished, I think, with the Southwest Raleigh Center.
I don't know
if the optics looks good.
On
The rest of it, they take down.
I agree.
First responders and all here.
These are just like by St. Francis, right? There are no others.
Right across the street, there's no.
It's like three of them,
There's another one south.
The rainbow on it.
Towards Max's house.
No, there's one on the fence, right? There's the guy
That's on residence fence.
On Port Boulevard.
The jury, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a good idea, but I don't know if it's gonna look very good favor.
Let's talk to the residents to see if someone's being responsible for it and.
Yeah, I think we care of it.
But I get your point, I mean, at one point they were falling down and everything else, so.
But they
And
haven't.
we can talk to St. Francis too, maybe working with the residents of St. Francis, we can relocate them too, so.
Put them in the parking lot.
Yeah, like they may, we might be able to put them in a hallway, display them and somewhere in the hospital, I don't know.
And the only other thing was the land behind the stage in the park. Is that ever resolved with the water department? Is that ours? Is that theirs? Are they gonna use that? Reason I ask is I'd like to explore planting there. And if it's not ours or it's gonna be taken away from us, there's no point, but if it is ours,
It's definitely ours.
okay.
The last time we talked to the water district, they said that they were moving away from that plan and trying to come up with a different one that wouldn't impact that surrounding area. So.
Right, we don't have any plans or any guarantees because one of their proposals was putting a two-story building on the same site. There's going to be construction on that site, any plantings are, going to be destroyed.
So let's follow up with them, see where they stand now.
Okay.
And then let's.
Yeah, I just want to find out because Ann said she'd be happy to take a walk, let's look at it, let's see if it's even viable to plant something, what we would plant. And so if it's going to be dormant for years, then maybe we can talk about planting something, but not if something's imminent.
It's not.
And if they're going to do construction, maybe as the restoration around it, we can.
And they would pay for it.
Because if they're doing a two-story building, they shouldn't be taking any of the property, but they may need to get equipment back there, so.
Yeah,
They're gonna have to restore the land anyway, even if they don't use it.
let me just find out. And,
Okay.
yeah. Thanks. That's
Thank
it.
you. More beautification, thank you. All right, any other updates? All right, going to old issue, just update on parking on Ridge Drive West. So we opened up spots on Ridge Drive and Northern Boulevard there, next to Rowe and Pollard. I think that's right. So I've been starting to see more cars parked there. Taking right past, I'm sure the residents would like to probably comment on it. But I'd say at different times I see there's less cars, the same amount of cars. I haven't been by this week, but would like to get your feedback. Let me just finish up here. Ronnie, I know you followed up with the
Yes,
traffic
I wanted to
engineer.
just report on my conversation. I spoke with Robert Eschbacher, who is a very well-known parking and traffic consultant on Long Island. He, as a courtesy to the village, did drive arounds and made two suggestions of what we could do with parking. One was to put parking on Middleton Road in front of the apartment house. In order to do that, we'd have to shift the center line a bit to the east and then paint, a parking lane. And the other suggestion he had was creating 2-hour parking from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the adjoining streets. His third suggestion was to have the businesses have their employees park under the viaduct and shuttle them over, but I'm doubtful that would go anywhere, that discussion would go anywhere.
So as far as Middle Neck Road goes, we're going to be meeting with the county on Wednesday, hopefully to finalize the IMA. They've agreed to changes to it. They are going to address the ponding issue. So they're going to put a plan together. So we would probably move forward contingent on Steve approving the addressing of the ponding issue. But we will finalize that this week with Middle Neck Road, and that will give us a better timetable for taking over Middle Neck Road, which will then give us the ability to potentially open up parking on Middle Neck Road. So I think that's a better viable long-term solution to those issues. And then the other thing that I think all the trustees got was we also received a petition from residents opposed to changing any parking or implementing any parking restrictions on Woods Drive. I think it was about 10 homes, 20 to 30 residents. So with that sums up, I think from the village's perspective, where the parking issues stand. Like I said, we're going to continue to look in ways. Let's see how this, how the additional parking spots helps. But
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You got a petition opposing parking from 10 to 20 people?
Right, hear me right? Opposing changing any parking, implementing any parking restrictions in that area, yes.
Okay.
So, do you have any comments or anything you'd like to add? Yes.
Well, I certainly do. I'm curious about how that came about without us as residents being aware of it, that there was something. The Middle Neck Road option that you all were talking about, again, so appreciate that people are trying to think outside of the box and look at different things. For those of us that have driveways on Middle Neck Road, it's treacherous as it is. So proposing adding additional parking back there and moving the lines further east towards our homes, I think is gonna make it harder. I think if we are not saying, okay, so there's gonna be parking on Middle Neck Road and that means you can't park elsewhere, all we're doing is what one of the board members had said probably 2 years ago when we started giving them additional parking spaces. We keep giving them more parking spaces. And the more we give them, the more they expand their need for them. The 4 spaces that they got, sorry, I had to take a breath. The 4 spaces that they got when you opened up next to the law office there, that nobody was utilizing that until we actually walked them over to it, walked the auto body shop owner over to it and said, can you please ask people to park here, as opposed to parking in front of our space. I think, again, if you open Middle Neck Road, they're going to park on Middle Neck Road, and they're going to continue to park in our neighborhood because they can. Tonight was a perfect example of, there was plenty of ample parking between our home and Northern Boulevard. We had 2 carfuls of people from Brian Cooper, we had the pizza guy, all parked in front of our home. They didn't take advantage of those other spots. I think we're gonna continue to run into that.
Yep.
If you do Middle Neck Road again, who's to say that Brian Cooper patrons aren't gonna take those spots? Who's to say that the apartment dwellers aren't gonna take those spots? And so now we're gonna end up with all of that behind our homes, which creates a lot of noise as it is, and in front of the homes. And the fact that Middle Neck Road becomes 2 lanes, probably 1 or 2 houses south of us, right? So 1 or 2 houses south of us, it divides into 2 lanes. if you're gonna take that up and take one of those lanes for parking, it's just gonna become more and more congested, there's more horns blaring. It just doesn't, they're gonna park there as long as we let people park there. I think the idea is, again, to incentivize them to not be parking there. I love the idea, I know you said you don't think it's gonna work, Ronnie, but having them have to bus their people in, I mean, they do it at the Americana all the time, they do it at lots of places. I just feel like we're gonna be kicking this can down the road. As long as we keep making more spots, they're gonna be putting more cars there. Whether it's cars that they're working on, cars that don't wanna valet parking at Brian Cooper, whatever it is going to be. I just don't think it's gonna alleviate the problem, I think we're gonna exacerbate it.
Okay, so the solution you want then is,
Ideally, I mean, you know, what I have said for, what are we going on, 3 years now? Some sort of limited parking, if it's only for, you know, a couple of hours here and there, which discourages them, which makes it inconvenient for them. I know that one of the neighbors, I spoke to the owner of the auto body shop, and he said he's opening up a new facility in Glen Head, and he was hoping to move, you know, some of the cars down there and bus people over that way. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I think we should be trying to push, as opposed to continuing to give them more spots, which we've learned now, right, over the course of however long this has been, the more spaces we provide, the more cars that show up.
And you guys had, I know you're holding it up, but you keep mentioning about Joanne's expanding. That's gonna be more. I mean, right now they can't. I mean, you guys know it, I'm sure you're tired of hearing it. Right now, there's no space for their employees. There isn't. They're on Ridge Drive East, they're on Ridge Drive West. That's another thing, it's just gonna get worse and worse. And as far as the apartments, my wife's right. If you live there and you have to go out to work early the next morning, I get it, it's safety, you know, safety concern to keep your car parked in your assigned spot behind it. You're gonna park it out front. I got a meeting tomorrow morning, I gotta be wherever it is, quick. I'm gonna leave my car there overnight, I can park it there now.
Well, you wouldn't be able to park overnight. Because
All right, well, you park it there overnight.
Overnight street parking restriction.
Sure, but
Can't
they
park.
would be able to park all day long, right, rather than walk a block from where the parking lot is to the entrance of the apartment building. It would be easier to park in front of there, it would be easier for, like I said, people who don't want to valet park at Brian Cooper. We've had a lot of that, we've had people say, the valets at Brian Cooper are telling them to park over in our neighborhood. So again, I so appreciate the effort to think outside the box and find something new to do, but I don't want to make the problem worse. I don't want to have it both in the front and the back of the homes that are on that side of the street, and I'm just afraid that that's what that solution might.
And Brian Cooper, and this is a big assumption, that rope-collared law firm, for a couple of weeks, at prime dinner time, every spot was taken, and it was taken by Brian Cooper, because it's been going on for years, we know every car at this point. I mean, I know every car.
It was
But
great.
the owners have an agreement with.
Right,
It was
but they're not doing it anymore. They did it for like 2 weeks, and now, tonight when we were cutting through there were 3 cars parked there, and whatever it is, 15 empty spaces.
It was really nice for like 2 weeks to tell everybody was parked there. Our whole block was opened up, but then as Pat said, tonight when we were leaving, our block was kind of congested again, and there was nobody parked in there. So I
I think that's part of it too, there's no consistency to it, you know?
Right, because there's no control, and I think absent some control, we're gonna continue to run into that issue.
I mean, at this point, we're evaluating the different options. I know you want more parking, and the problem is, right, we got people on both sides of it. So we're trying to look at other options. So,
2-hour parking between 9 and 6 is a perfect solution. I, for the life of me, I don't see why this is such a big problem. I really don't. It's not that big of a sacrifice.
Or even if it wasn't 2-hour parking, if it was just no parking between, 10 and 12 and 5 and 7, just something that wouldn't terribly inconvenience neighbors, right?
Maybe we could find out what the peak
Yeah.
period is when they go to work. So that if we restrict parking just for the couple of hours when they have to park and go to work. So let's say they all have to be in for the lunch shift at 11 o'clock. So we restrict parking from 10 to 1. So then none of those, and then we do it again maybe in the afternoon when everybody has to.
You were more than
The
welcome
problem
to
is
come hang out in my
enforcement.
home
Who's
office.
gonna enforce the 2-hour parking?
Well, that was, I think when we had
The
first talked about that, it was, no, I think when we had first talked about it, didn't we say it was gonna be?
Robert was gonna have the ability to issue tickets. That's what you guys can provide.
You know, it's enforcement and stuff.
Please understand though too, Robert is not here 24/7, so even if we did that, you know, he's not necessarily here during all those times to enforce.
He's not,
Which
he doesn't
Which
patrol,
he
he doesn't patrol.
You don't have to control, you don't have to
Blanket, but
control, but
if
they got an occasional ticket, it would send a message.
I think somebody had said in the last meeting, there were two things that came up that I thought were really valuable in the last meeting. One of the residents had said, if you just get them out of the habit of doing that, because remember, this hasn't always been an issue, right? So if you just got them out of the habit again, if they had to find an alternative, maybe that would work. And the second thing that came from one of you, and I'm sorry, I don't remember which one it was, but somebody had said, you know, have we looked at, are there capacity limits? Or, you know, for the number of cars that they're allowed to have, the amount of parking that they're supposed to have, and are they over capacity for that? And if that's the case, can we please look at, you know, perhaps enforcing that? Again, recognizing everybody's given their best efforts, but I feel like continuing to reward them with additional parking for being bad neighbors is not the answer.
So we just got the petition in. What I'd say is on the parking restrictions, let's talk to some of the people or to all the people that are on there. Let's get that feedback and see if there's some compromise we can come to with everybody in the neighborhood. And try and get to a solution that works for everybody.
Appreciate it.
I mean, the problem is people don't want them parking on the block, but then when you try to restrict parking, they're like, oh no, I want to be able to park my car in my house, or I want to get, so, you know, it's like, you know, quicksand, and
But with
it's
the
trying to climb out and
exception
everything.
of people like us who don't have a driveway at the front of our house, our driveway is on Middle Neck Road. I think there are only 4 of us who have that problem.
And that's a tough,
It's hard, it's really difficult. I mean, we had to come, for one of the other issues that we should be addressing here tonight, we had to come and request special permits to park in front of our house because we can't park in the back because we have exterminators doing stuff back there. It's difficult, it really is, and we have said all along, it's not just about my comfort, my convenience, it's about what are we doing as a neighborhood? Is that really what you want Flower Hill to look like? Do you want Flower Hill to look like car to car to car, you know, park bumper to bumper, tons of strangers in your neighborhood every day?
Well, I completely get what you're saying, but the problem there starts to become, right, we can't just provide parking to you and your neighbors in front of your houses, to Frank's point, and that's the challenge here. If we say no parking or restrict parking in some way, that has a waterfall effect. And so even amongst your neighbors, like people said, no, I need to be able to get in front of my house. So I hear what you're saying about, you know, trying to preserve the nature of the neighborhood. At the same time, we have businesses there that have grown over the years, like you're saying. So it's probably going to be, you know, it's good. We got to continue to work.
and we did look into the possibility of either a placard on the dashboard or a sticker on your car saying that, you know, you're a resident, you can park, but I think it was determined by council that you cannot do that. So that, you know, that, we thought that would be the great idea, you know, a sticker on your car, you know, and if you don't have a sticker, you get a ticket. But for
Right,
some
and I
strange reason, we're not allowed to do
I
that.
think that's something to do with the fact that we were accepting state funds for the roads. and
Yeah,
stuff
you
like that.
do get grants.
But again, is there something that we can explore that a little bit deeper? Is there perhaps an exemption that you can file for because there's commercial negatives?
Is there any?
I mean, you think in Manhasset, they do it.
The reason you can't exclude non-residents from parking and allow residents to park is that that's unconstitutional. It's an infringement on the right to travel. But what you can do is have a parking permit program and require people to apply and obtain a parking permit. And as long as you don't discriminate, it creates a level of bureaucracy that might be an obstacle to some people who are parking casually.
I know Great Neck Plaza had something like that for a long time. I don't know if they still do, but if you lived in Great Neck Plaza, which is a village, incorporated village, if you lived in Great Neck Plaza, you had something on your car that allowed you to park on the street. If you didn't have it, there was
It was
some
only for
restriction.
the municipal lots.
Hmm?
It was only for the municipal lots.
No, it wasn't, it was like parking anywhere, I think after midnight or after 10 o'clock at night or something like that.
Street. All right, so let's do this. Yeah, I mean, let's double check that because maybe the law has changed on it. But I remember the memo that was last time that said we couldn't do it. So, or at least the guidance from Jeff. So we'll look into that. I wish I had a magic solution I could wave on and make this go away for you. And obviously there's complexity here. So thank you for your patience and we're gonna keep trying to figure a way through it. All right, Ronnie, document scanning, I know this is something we want to pursue. Some of us have seen demonstrations on this. Gary, I know you and I had a conversation about, federal funding for this, right, using our aid for this. I did go back and double check with Suzanne and Ronnie. We did not have a gap in revenue. So, that funding, we can't just take the federal aid funding and put it towards filling revenue goals. So Ronnie, I knew you had given some information. Is there anything else you want to say about the program? I'll put to the board for questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the board know that because certain municipalities did not submit applications to get this funding. We were given a proportionate share of the money that was not claimed. So our total increased to $250,717 for this year, and then we're going to get the same amount again next summer. I sent you all the information about these kind of 4 different items that we need to bring our whole system up into capability of being able to do everything through mail and electronically. So I'm just asking for permission to enter into these agreements. I don't know if you have the chart in front of you. If you want, I can go over the individual costs of each project. The total was $216,884.50. On 2 of the items, there are an annual renewal of $5,000 each, and that would be for the building permit program and for the laser fiche. The other 2 items, which were the document conversion and scanning the files, are one-time costs. Are there any questions? We still have, and that would also leave us with a balance of funding for this year, and I have another idea on that. I thought perhaps for the balance, we should perhaps look at commissioning a study on how we can improve our storm drainage system for these intense storms that we've been having.
Ronnie, before we go there, go ahead, Frank.
That number includes the municipality, which by the way, I did get a kind of a tour of it from Chrissy.
Oh, you did, yeah.
Who absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
And she gave me a quick kind of overview and showed me how it works, and it really is, it's a great system.
I know, it has a great code enforcement program built into it as well.
Yeah.
Which has, it's built in, and it built in all the follow-up. So, if there was no follow-up, like for example, Harvard, I don't want to put things at anybody, we keep getting constant reminders, follow up on this, close it out, close it out, close it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a neat little thing that they have on that one. So, in order to use Municity, we have to scan all our building files. So the building file scanning would be $143,000. Then our current program, which is, oh my God, what's it called? Checklist. In order to convert the checklist data into Municity, that would be $21,000, about $21,500. Municity training, all of the code compliance, building program and everything, the licensing is, the initial cost would be over $46,000 and then about $5,000 renewing each year. And finally, the laser fiche, which is the document management system, and that's where we can do our online applications and have a public portal where people can get their own information without, us having to interface. And that is $6,100 with an annual renewal of $5,000.
I have a question, Brian. On the scanning cost, so looking at it now, so the initial scanning would be $143,389. What happens, what's the cost, or is there any incremental cost to scan additional items
Okay.
after that.
Okay, so every
we-
time-
We kind of catch up on.
That's on us now. Every time something comes in, either we ask for it digitally so we can load it right in, or we scan it ourselves. So
Which we do not,
just have to
we
keep
do
on,
not anyway,
which we pretty much do anyway.
so the cost wouldn't be any different.
Right, we just have to get that backlog done so that we can continue to scan on a daily basis.
How do we know that that 143K is for all of our documentation? Is that an estimate? Is that?
It's a pretty good estimate. Just to let you know that the company that's doing this is, they use, it's called an ASD. Do you recall, Suzanne?
I can't think of the letters, but.
I know, but they use handicapped workers. They are a state, not only are they on the state contract, they are the state wants us to use them because they do provide employment to to many handicapped people. So they're, an approved vendor. The president of the company, Rich Siri, has been here several times, actually, looking in our drawers, opening folders, counting pages, measuring files. I mean, it's a pretty good estimate. I mean, he really worked a lot on, put a lot of work into putting the estimate together.
Well, what happens if it comes in another $50,000? That's my
You know,
concern.
I don't see it coming in that much more.
They have a
It
lot
might,
of-
I'm telling you, it might be $10,000, but I don't think it'll be $50,000.
So, Ronnie, how does it work? Do we agree to a fee per page, or are they locked into that price and it?
No, it is a per page and per large format scan.
So what's so then there's two different cost structures, right? Per page and then large format.
Right.
That's tricky. You know,
But I think
it's like
honestly,
it's a contractor coming in low and then you get a lot of change.
Yeah.
I mean,
Such a big job.
Are they, are they kind of lowballing this number to get us to bite?
This guy is very
And say,
trustworthy.
well, you had 10,000 documents, it's another, $10,000.
Barney, they've done it elsewhere, so you can ask the other clerks. if-
yeah, I
if,
think
you know,
we
how-
can certainly see other people's scanning has been estimated
How accurate they've been.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how close they get, because, I can't imagine how you could estimate the amount of pieces of paper in this village.
Well, there is a formula by the size of the file
Yes, they do this.
and how what percentage of the file is large format plans,
So let's,
to work up.
I guess I'm sure that they do.
All right, let me check with other villages.
and let's ask them to give us some feedback too on your last three
How accurate it was.
jobs. Yeah, how accurate was it? And is it 10 or 20% over or under?
Do we have any off-site storage of documentation, or is all documents here?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Do we have any off-site documents?
Yes, we do.
Has those boxes been counted for this estimate?
That have been one?
Or that they would have what they counted.
No, those are all scanned already.
And where are they? Where's our website?
It's in Mineola in the warehouse.
Ronnie's basement. It's Ronnie's boiler.
So Ronnie, everything that's been scanned already, that's in this warehouse, that's in the proper format then for microfiche?
Yes, and those are all the board records, board minutes, it's not building. We have most of St. Francis, historical documents scanned. But as far as the rest of, there's nothing else building wise that's been scanned. The stuff that's in storage are all the board minutes from 1932 forward, yeah. I mean-
I was
It's
looking
not
for those.
easy, look at them all.
Yeah, I have all the board minutes.
I'm sure.
Other
So
questions?
has every trustee had a chance to get a demo, read the documentation?
I don't think they want the demo, so far.
Well, I'm asking a question, because I think it's gonna be hard for a bunch of people who haven't
Yeah,
necessarily
it is
seen this
hard.
to approve $216,000.
Well, probably better to go to like a village that has it,
Yeah,
and see,
it was
and have somebody show them
It
the
was
work.
much different.
better.
Watch seeing you in person than it was on the video.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure Chrissy would do
Oh,
that.
she would, she's amazing like
Oh,
that.
yeah, she would do it for us.
She loves you.
And I assume if people wanted, the firm, again, would do it if anything wants to do it. So is anybody interested in that, or?
I mean, I have the video of the demonstration, if anybody wants to see it.
So I mean, I think there's two things here. One is, are people comfortable with the system? Two is, do we want to use the federal funds to go towards this, or are there other projects that we would like to use that funding for? There's other IT projects that we've talked about in the past, but I think this is the largest one that the staff is looking to get done.
Just to be clear, the 250,000 is the first tranche, and there's a second tranche?
That's our first tranche.
So what we're talking about is about $500,000 over 2 years?
Yep. And, right, it can't be used for anything, like, right, and, the first thing that popped in my head, honestly, Gary, was like walking path, right, because.
Right, well, even that is not certain that would pass muster.
Exactly, and my thing was like, I wish so many people are using the outdoors, like making our roads safer, providing more ability for people to be active outdoors, especially during COVID. Seems like it would be something that fit, but it didn't. So it really is kind of for more infrastructure needs. So what other questions do folks have?
I think in support of it, and I'll speak to the other architects that are here tonight as a couple. It is the trend that is going on pretty much everywhere. Building departments all over are digitizing, they're allowing online submissions of documents. If you look at your workload and the workload of the village staff, pulling out documents, pulling out drawings, reviewing drawings. I think we just need to move into 21st century,
I have to say,
And
yeah,
digitizing
sorry.
our operational management capabilities, I think it's a good long-term investment.
I attended Municipal Clerks Institute, that was a state, it was an online series of classes, and we had clerks from all over the state. And I was pretty embarrassed because we're like the only ones who don't have our documents here.
And I agree with the mayor that it would be nice to spend that money on something else, but if that money is so restricted, and very often with these grants, they're so restricted that you don't find anything you can spend them on, and then you wind up, So if there is something that it will allow us to purchase, and this happens to be a need that we've been talking about for how many years now?
Yep.
Since it's really not costing us anything.
Right.
It really, to me, it seems like a pretty viable solution to a lot of our issues with the building department and records.
So what other hardware, because this doesn't include everything, don't we need other hardware? Meaning, yes, if this is gonna be for code
All
enforcement.
cloud-based.
But as an example, if this is gonna be if this has capabilities for code enforcement. Is
Oh,
not.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Is not
We
code
need two
enforcement
tablets.
and possibly our building.
We need two
department?
tablets.
Yeah, you need a tablet.
Are you gonna
Rob would walk around with a tablet.
But I'm just saying, so this doesn't have the full story. There's also there's gonna be the service for, we're gonna have to get them with the cell phone radios. I mean,
bigger monitors? People are gonna want bigger monitors if they're gonna be reading everything on their.
not a lot of people.
No, I'm just saying is that.
You're looking at the people.
I understand, I understand, but I'm just saying that, as an example, that there are some additional.
But these are nitpicky, a big monitor is $1,200, a tablet is, a couple $100. We're not talking about.
Who would need it?
Well, and you're aren't you using, like,
My monitor is fine.
that's what I mean, aren't you doing this digital stuff already? So, going back and looking at older files is one thing, but aren't we requiring plans to come in digitally now?
No, we're not.
But the beauty of this is that you don't need a server, you don't need any kind of
Right.
on-site storage, because it's cloud-based, so it really is not a big hardware investment with this thing. It's all basically in the cloud, wherever that is.
And our concern with the existing system we have, it's a one-guy shop.
And it keeps crashing.
And we
Mine
have, the company, Municity, is
Right.
been around, it's a stable
Probably
company.
my general code.
They're used, a
24
lot of villages
24
are using
hours.
it. How many villages are using Municity?
No, I know, I couldn't even tell you, it's really big.
Roslyn Harbor, I know, is using it now.
Roslyn Estates, I think, is
Yeah.
using it,
So it's kind of like almost the default
Saves-
program that everybody.
Baxter says that.
Peter, you're comfortable using it?
Yes.
All right, so where are folks at on this? Do you want some more time to get more information?
Yeah, can
Are
somebody
people
get some
comfortable with it?
information on the estimate on scanning?
I think I'd like to get a better handle on the scanning, and I'd like part of this, we'll call it whatever, project, the additional hardware and the cost of it. If we do need tablets for our employees, I wanna know what that is, I wanna know what the monthly cost for self-services for those, because I assume they're gonna wanna be able to do things on the fly. Is Robert gonna need a printer as an example? If he's doing code enforcement, is he gonna need a mobile printer to print right then and there? These are the questions I think we should have as part of this whole presentation, instead of,
Yeah, I don't know I've never seen anything, about a mobile printer.
that's what, how's
Yeah, I
the
think we
issue?
would, use the same tickets that we've always used, but this is a way of recording it.
You know, I think when you do code enforcement with it, you type it onto the tablet, and you do have a little printer thing that prints it out.
But do they have
That
the
goes on
Baxter?
par with that. I don't know if they do it Baxter, but there are municipalities on the South Shore who
And do they have
all
police?
their building violations now are like New York City parking tickets. They're these
Hmm.
long, thin, like receipt
Or
prints.
no printer.
Yeah.
So Peter, during an inspection, are inspection tickets issued?
Yeah.
Would we wanna have that on paper and then have to be entered again, or
No,
would it
the
make
whole
sense?
purpose of this is to do.
Well, that's what I'm saying, so now it sounds like we'll need multiple printers, so this
hold on,
presentation
hold on.
doesn't have everything.
It's a couple $1,000.
Yeah,
We got some questions just to that point. So Peter, in another village where you use this, and do they hand you a printout, or do you get it
Well-
emailed to you?
They haven't gotten to the point to use it for the inspection part.
Okay.
But with inspections, other municipalities don't even issue, they don't issue just something to somebody right there. If it's on a tablet, a lot of times, the contractor will take a picture of the tablet with the approval on it. It's like as simple as that.
Okay.
So there's no printout necessary, really necessary. For if you're issuing a ticket to something, I don't know how that's done. I don't know if there's a printer that would be done on
So
that.
let's follow up on the scanning costs. Let's find out hardware-wise, tablets.
And let's see if the hardware
and
is
printers.
I'm sorry?
Let's see if we have to buy a couple $1,000s worth of hardware, will the grant cover that as part of it?
Well, I was gonna say, we have, after this basic outlay that I'm talking about, we still have almost $35,000.
You know, we're probably talking $3,000 worth of.
Yeah, I
hardware
can't
at most.
imagine, spending one part.
And everything is,
Everything.
regular sheet gets.
Don't forget, whatever we don't spend, we have to give
Yeah,
back.
and if they're gonna pay for it anyway, let's get the right stuff and get this right, so that it kind of.
I feel better approving this when I have all the costs.
And that's fine,
I don't wanna get piecemeal. However, if you wanna talk about spending money on getting us off the server and getting our emails to the cloud, I'm all for that right away, because I know that server is.
Oh my God, I'm like, thank you.
It's beyond.
We just agreed right now to, get Microsoft 360.
We're not going down that road in this meeting already, so we'll go back to that one, right?
Can we have that for next meeting? I definitely want to approve that for next meeting, assuming we have all the documentation that we need and everybody's comfortable with the costs, but that is something we've deferred for the last 1 or 2 budget cycles, so that I'd be fine with.
And it crashes.
All right, so Ronnie will pull together the information on the server as well. All right, any other questions or comments on this one? All right, new business, Ronnie.
Okay, we got a request from the Manhasset Women's Breast Cancer Coalition for them to hold their annual walk through the village. And the date is October 3rd, it's in the morning. They just go through a couple of our streets, Stonytown and Mason and Nassau. That's it. They filed their insurance with us, everything is in order. So I'd like the motion to approve their walk through the village.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
So Ronnie, I know you put stormwater capacity in here.
Yeah.
I want to have a conversation about this in our staff meeting. One of the things coming out of the storm last week, obviously, there's no way to prevent what happened in a storm like that 2 weeks ago. Like, it's so unfortunate, you know? However, as we talk about being a climate smart community, right? We should be looking into opportunities to expand the average, just like the average rainstorm, and make sure that homes are not being impacted by that, and think about those larger storms and how we can prevent stuff, but something like that's just unpredictable.
And we should look at the Birchdale situation as one of the first. Because I never thought I would look out my bedroom window and see firemen in a boat rowing down Birchdale Lane because there was 6 feet of water in the street and the firemen couldn't even get down the block. Because everything feeds into that, where the intersection of Maple, Maple, where Raj lives, and it was coming down from from Country Club, it was coming down Cherry, it was coming down around from Wood Valley, Woods. And when I saw the boat, I really thought it was the end of the world. I mean, it's like, why did they have a boat? And I see them getting this boat, and they're like rowing down. They parked in front of my house, this 100-foot military Roslyn fire department. 10 billion flashing lights on it.
We always had the specs for these catch basins.
So,
It'd be about
I don't think there's anything. The water was literally this, up to people's doors. So I don't think there's anything.
And just another thing for people to understand as well, that I learned in this as well, catch basins, not all catch basins are connected to the storm pipes that go out to the bay. So some catch basins are just holding tanks, and it collects water and then drains right into the soil over time. So, right, that in a storm like that, there's just too much water, so a holding tank is just gonna get overwhelmed. So unfortunately, in some areas, there are not pipes, and even in that storm, I think a lot of them may have gotten clogged up as well, not even the catch basin, but further on.
They're designed for, 3 to 5 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. We had 8 inches of rain in 3 hours. So, and the other thing with catch basins is that they don't do well when water is moving over the top of them. So what happens is the velocity of the water is so great that it actually defies gravity and does not go into the catch basin. It just goes right over the top of it because of the hydrostatic pressure of the water. So no matter how good the catch basin system is, when you have water rushing down the street, like literally like the Mississippi River, unless you have some kind of vertical obstruction that will force it down, it just goes right over the top. So, and that's what was happening, at least in front of my house. The water was just going right over the catch basin.
So this is one thing I think long term we should think about, can we put in some larger catch basins as we look to the future, which has more rain in it.
Well, somebody to divert the water or something.
Well, that's why the newer catch basins we're installing now, we're putting wells with them.
Yeah.
Like over by Country Club, that one has those 2 catch basins, but we also have a 20-foot well. That's why over there, we have a new one, also one on the other side of Country Club. Those newer ones, we're just trying to put those bigger wells to catch as much water as possible.
Gary, you have a thought or question?
Oh, no, what I was wondering is, do we know clearly which catch basins only go to
Yes.
dry well?
They're marked. They have a flag.
Oh,
There's a little round that says directly back.
right.
Some of those have fallen off.
Yeah, I
One
know.
in my house fell off, but that's what you look for, directed back.
Okay. Rodent problem. So I think all trustees have seen the email. I think we have some residents here potentially to talk about it. So several weeks ago, in dealing with the parking issue, we came to light that there were rats in the area around Ridge Drive. The staff been talking to residents. Nassau County Public Health went down, inspected the restaurants, met with some of the residents around their homes, gave some recommendations to people who are working with exterminators. We are going to meet actually with the public health official and again, the restaurants down there to see where they're at with compliance and things like that. We've reviewed with Jeff and our legal attorney, the village attorney, the code and what potential violations the village can write. We're also going to look at some updates to our code to address potential commercial properties. But going forward, we're just going to keep engaging property owners, whether they be commercial or residential, trying to provide any assistance we can to eliminate this rodent problem. And I think now, given the fact that there is all this engagement, we got to alert neighboring properties as well and make sure the rodents don't move to another area. So with that, I will open it up to any residents who may want to speak on this. Gentlemen, anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, so I live at 11 Ridge Drive West. I'm impacted by the parking issue as well, but the rodent issue, we've been pursuing with Nassau County Department of Health. So it turns out there's at least two different, potentially more, constituents there that investigate this. So, today I spoke with the Office of Fruit Protection, which is a different part of the Department of Health. And they told me that, they've asked Joann's to address their dumpsters, which are open, gnawed, the top is misaligned, and they refuse to comply. So then they've given them another order today, and then they're going to start to, they've cited them, and then they're going to start to, I don't know, progressive citations, and ultimately fines and what have you.
Is that garbage?
Yes,
Yeah, the dumpsters. So what they were doing is, they were leaving their dumpsters open during the day and throwing garbage in, and then even at night sometimes they weren't closing it. So I had a conversation.
Dumpsters don't close, the tops don't close, and they're gnawed through, so there's holes in them, where the rats enter. And so they need to fix those, replace the lids, get lids that fully close that are aligned. So there's, tremendous amount of rodent activity. In that area, you can go and observe it during the day. Both gentlemen from the two different departments of Nassau County said this is the worst they've seen in years and throughout their regions. And it just seems like there's a big infestation that's really due again to this, these commercial properties. And I'm a relatively new resident. It just seems that the needs of these entities are, at least to me, it seems that they are taken they are sort of preferential to those of the residents. So we were just talking about this parking issue. It's really being driven by these commercial establishments. Same here with this rodent issue, and their needs seem to be higher than the residents. Doesn't seem like, to me as a new resident, that Flower Hill really cares as much about its residents as these commercial establishments. And that's my perception. I didn't get to speak on the parking issue. I won't bring that up again. That I feel like is dangerous for my family. I have young children. I'm near sort of the area where it kind of stops. But that's the thing that we've gotten living in this community a little bit over a year now. That really it's more about these commercial interests than the residents.
Well, I disagree with you. This is the first time I've met you, so I apologize if you feel that way. Happy to meet with you to discuss any of these issues as well. As far as the commercial issues go, I think I have gone back and forth with the owner of at least one of those properties several times publicly over some actions that they took. But we engage these property owners regularly, and where we can write violations, we will write violations. The rat problem only came to light 3 weeks ago, and we're trying to do everything we can to do that and work with everybody. We haven't been a village that goes and writes violations. We try and work with people to get in compliance. So I think our patience is worn thin on this one. We've tried to let Nassau County Public Health take the lead because they're the experts that deal with rats. We've never, I think, dealt with rats here in the village before in a capacity like this, so we tried to take their lead. But I will tell you, when it comes to this especially, we will not have we will not give them a long leash to deal with this. That's just, you should not be dealing with rodents in your backyard. And we're trying to figure out where it is because while that may be a food source, they're living somewhere. So I think one of the comments that was made by the public health official too is we need to find burrows. So if the burrows aren't on their property, it's on another property which we haven't identified yet. And
I can identify that for you, and I think there's been video recordings.
Where is it?
Visibly of rats actually frolicking in the grass on 3 Ridge Drive West.
Yep, Ridge Drive. Okay.
And back of that, between where the property in theory ends and the street, there's
some sort of, tiny little forest or whatever you want to call it, dense growth, and they're living there as well. I'm not sure where the property line ends and the street begins. Basically the end of that driveway on Millnet. But,
All the ideas,
there's idea, and there's.
right across from the body shop.
Yeah, I mean, they go into the dumpsters, they exit, and they go there, and now it seems like they've also moved to the other side of the property onto Ridge Drive.
Okay.
I've spoken to the Office of Food Protection, they said that you need to stop the food source. So we put out bait boxes working with a private exterminator company, and they don't touch the bait. The reason they don't touch the bait is because they're well fed. They're not going to eat the bait if they're, I found bread in my yard, so they're I'm 6 houses down. So they're taking out bread from the dumpster and carrying it all the way up Little Neck Road and, dropping it in my yard along the way.
Okay.
So, once the food stops, what I was advised today was that they will begin to look for other sources of food. They will begin to eat the bait, but they will also go farther and be more aggressive to get that food. So even once this issue is stopped, in terms of the dumpsters and whatever other food sources are coming from the food establishments there, it's not necessarily going to end, right away.
That's why I talked about we need to do a further communication, and that's part of the information that we've been receiving. So we're trying to act on what we have when we have it and go from there.
And they're already, Brian, just echoing on Morrisville's point, these things were in everybody's backyard. They're coming up front now, so they're coming up to the front. They were on Middle Neck Road, now they're making their way up to Ridge Drive. The property he was talking about, I walked up yesterday, the one right next to the pizzeria. I've worked in Manhattan for 25 years. I saw some big rats. These are New York City subway rats. 2 of them chasing each other on the front lawn, running up the front walk. I mean, it's unbelievable looking at it.
They're also, again, echoing what Marcelo said previously, our exterminator said to us, it's like beating back the tide. We have bait boxes out, we have live cages out. We are parking our cars around front so that, hopefully we can lure them into live cages. They're not going for anything because they are so well fed. We're finding food in our backyard. It's disgusting. I've lived here, and I said this more in the past 2 years to all of you than I said about it. I lived here 30 years. We've never seen anything like this. It's really awful. And just, as an FYI, again, talking about, commercial businesses versus the residents, that first home that we're talking about is owned by your body shop. So perhaps not as great interest as those of us who actually live in our houses.
So Ronnie today was in communication with, because I saw the rats doing a little rat dance
Oh, it's terrible.
on
isn't it?
Saturday, and then they went into the vent pipe in the house with the septic vent pipe, so I saw one hiding out there.
Oh.
Ronnie did speak to, because I didn't see those rats until Saturday. And then
I spoke to the owner of the body shop today, and I informed him that the rats are probably burrowing on his property. He was like, oh, no, I have an exterminator. I said, well, I have a print film to show you that shows the rats frolicking on your property and the open drain pipe on the side of your house where they're living. I sent him the film. We're meeting tomorrow with the Board of Health at 1 o'clock over there. I invited him to join us and, hopefully have the Board of Health person show him this is where the burrows are in your, wooded area here. And so.
Our exterminator had said that you can identify the burrows, they can shoot, he said CO2.
Yeah, carbon dioxide.
That will kill them immediately.
Yeah.
That's, I feel like we need to be doing that. We can do as much as we want to do, but as long as that's still happening.
If you find the burrow, carbon dioxide or dry ice, because it produces carbon dioxide, it'll kill them like that.
Yeah, my son lives in Brooklyn, so we're familiar with that, and then you fill it with cement.
So we didn't get dry ice.
Therein lies the question.
But no,
I always wanted to get it.
but the exterminators have it in a canister form, so they just spray it in it and you're done. So I just feel like
It freezes them?
Suffocates.
Yeah, suffocates.
And it's carbon dioxide.
So, listen, if Fruit Drive West is the source and that's the burrows, I think we're close to addressing this problem. What I will tell you is the garbage issues will be resolved this week.
That's it. If they've already gotten violations from Nassau County, we've gone through our code, we think that we have some latitude to give violations in the section that Jeff did a review on. We're also gonna look at making updates. I mean, our code is not robust in this area, so we're gonna take a look and see what else we can do. So, and it may just apply to commercial properties, right? Because there's differences there when it comes to use. So I apologize to you all for having to deal with this. I do not want this to be the reputation of the village. And our residents are our first priority, sir, so I apologize for you feeling that way. Sir, I don't know if you're here for that same issue or.
No, I'm not, and I don't think I should follow this with the issue I'm here for.
Oh. Okay.
First of all, I want to say, I'm
Let me just say-
never complaining about a cave cricket ever again in my life. You guys, I'm so sorry that you guys have to deal with this.
Yes. Just one second. Any other questions on the road issue or comments from the board? But we were committed that whatever the village can do to help resolve the situation, we will.
Yeah, so the only thing that's been effective has been open traps. So actually, just before I came here, there's an open trap and we caught a rat in my backyard. Again, I have small children, so they recommend not putting out open traps because small children are pets. We put out a couple, kept the kids out of the backyard, so we basically can't use the backyard with our kids. You know, aside from that, there's no other way to catch them right now, at least according to our exterminator and what we've heard from others. So, you know, we really appreciate whatever you can do to kind of get it nipped in the bud, because they're going to keep going and spreading out.
Yeah. Okay. So that wraps up the road issue. So, sir, I gave you the floor. So
No, it's cool. Again, I'm so sorry. Actually, do I stand up? Like, I don't.
Yeah, you can stand.
All right, my name's Josh Ross.
Where you are, where you live.
I live in Homewood Place, obviously Flower Hill. I actually called Ronnie this summer, a while back. Probably should have come to a meeting before tonight because I had an idea to organize a 5K, Flower Hill 5K. I used to run a lot of road races when I lived in the city for New York Road Runners. My father-in-law is Parkinson. They got really involved with the Michael J. Fox Foundation, Team Fox. So kind of running and raising money has always been something I, just kind of enjoyed. And I don't run as much anymore now that, every ruptured disc to me run a little less every time, but I still love doing 5Ks. And I know that it's a big, very popular on Long Island as well, everywhere. I know that you guys do the Oppo 5K in June. That's, I did not realize that there was another. I don't know how many 5K applications you get. I imagine you've never had two in one night. I heard that there was the breast cancer walk going on, but yeah, I mean the idea is pretty simple. And I don't know the Oppo course because I couldn't find it online, but I imagine it's Stonytown, Elderfield, Manhasset, that kind of area.
Right, you know, like.
I have a match.
He has maps you can share with you, and we've never organized an event for the village. Usually we have these nonprofits reach out and they ask to use some of the village roads.
Right.
So that's usually how it works.
Right. So basically my idea, and I apologize, I'm not that great of a public speaker, but my idea would be to organize this the race. Again, originally I had the idea just to do it for Parkinson's disease because it's close to my heart. But I know this guy who used to work at Team Fox, he has this company called Charity Miles. And basically, I could work with him such that, because there's so many causes that people have. They spend time, they spend their money, they're personal to them. I think you should give people a chance to put the money wherever they want it. And this company, Charity Miles, usually do it just like, basically their model is, I'm going for a run, who wants to sponsor that run? But to work with them and say, okay, here's that, whatever the initiation fee is, you don't want to make it cost prohibitive, but you say, however much this money, I'm going to put it towards this charity. I'm going to put it towards, Flower Hill, put it towards, breast cancer, whatever it is, because there are so many people and important things. And so that was originally my idea, just kind of like running for, whatever cause was important to you. And I thought it'd be great, start in Flower Hill Park, have like a little kids race before, whatever, 4 or 5, and, or I don't even know what, if there's a local Flower Hill coffee spot. I don't want to highlight any businesses near your road, that's, stay away from those people, but someone provides coffee in the morning, I know Arena would be willing to do t-shirts, I know that they're not Flower Hill, but, they're pretty local, so the idea would be to get local businesses involved, kind of putting Flower Hill on the name, I think would be cool, just because I think there's a whole lot of people who have no idea what Flower Hill is, other than a place where you can live and go to 3 different schools. Maybe you guys know, but I live in Fort, and everyone's like, oh yeah, where's Flower Hill? So I think it'd be cool. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think it'd be good for the town, exercise, good for health, good for a lot of reasons. So I haven't done the legwork on insurance or any of that stuff. Ronnie kind of just suggested, when I talked to her, she's like, come and just throw out the idea and see what people think. And so I probably repeated myself 100 times, but that's kind of my idea. And in terms of when, I know June was that Oppo race. This race, I guess, is October. I wanted to do it when it's not, weather prohibitive. So some maybe end of April, early May, or but definitely don't want to do the cold months. So.
What did you say your name was again?
Josh Rosberg.
Josh.
It's hard to speak with this thing out.
I know.
Can I add something? Because I went into Josh's neighborhood and he had a little rough idea, but what I was particularly impressed with was his interest in making this a Flower Hill event. For the residents of Flower Hill, the kid run, I thought that was fantastic, so I really applaud you.
Yeah,
bring this.
Josh, should we meet outside?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we met when you guys were right before the election.
Yeah, that's great.
I just see Shane running all the time and I get really feel really insecure about myself.
There's something called the Don Scott Memorial Fund,
Okay.
and I'm not sure what that is. but
That's been Hassett.
But they do ask, they use some of our
That's like
streets.
in June.
Don Scott was the coach at Manhasset, he passed away, and they have a Don Scott.
Yeah, but they use some of our streets.
Yeah.
But
It's not based.
But if we look at the spring, we've got runway, right, where we can, work
Yeah,
together.
or even
just
fall.
put this out,
Yeah, I think there's definitely ways to do it. I mean, does anybody have any questions, or it sounds like everybody seems pretty not.
I think it's great.
So.
I fully support this.
Yeah, it's very in my brain stage, but I just didn't want to get ahead of myself. But I think honestly, with it being a 5K, I mean at most I think Stonytown you need police out there for maybe 2 hours in total. From the morning through the end. I mean, I can't really call it a walk race because it'll take a little time, and then Stonytown's a busy road to close off, or Bonnie Heights to close off and more than that. But again, those are that's how I think about things. I'm like, I don't want to make it obnoxious for people who don't run and stuff to close off their roads and stuff. So just little things I'm trying.
No, that's being smart about
It's okay to hate runners anyway.
Yeah. Well, ironically, we don't have Stonytown's not the greatest, road to run on.
Yeah.
Because of the cars, but it is. I saw that the Oppo started there, and I think Flower Hill Park's just a great place to start and finish. Right. Pick up your T-shirt and your bib and all that.
Yeah, Flower Hill, T-shirts.
Yeah. Anyway.
What's the next
Again,
step?
but I'm sorry to follow the serious issues. So.
What's the next step?
That's fine, that's just a normal board meeting,
All
right?
right.
Well, not the rat stuff, but, working through stuff.
All right.
I guess you want to start kind of put something on paper.
Exactly.
The way we think might be a good course.
Yep.
And I'd say, Ronnie can put you in touch with these other groups and maybe they can give you some advice or counsel on how to.
Yeah, Ms. Alba would be a great resource.
No, yeah, it'd be great.
Certainly introduce you to her.
I used my best detective skills to find the course for that race, but no one had it on
Not that hard to find.
Yeah.
Well, that was probably after the random. I was looking at in the lead up to it, and you couldn't find the course, maybe because it hadn't been on before.
Maybe. All right, well, thank you, and definitely let's, Ronnie, help him out, and, we'll, I think, probably some folks on the board will help out when,
That's awesome.
you're on Marshall.
He's gonna be like the face, he's the face.
He's gonna face us.
I think it'll be fun for us.
Zoom meetings,
Yeah, so the governor's authorized Zoom meetings again.
We're just really curious, because I just sound like YouTube, studying over myself, like people are watching at home.
yeah,
Oh, great.
sorry, I should have announced that in the beginning.
You may go viral.
Okay, sweet.
So anyway, Zoom meetings have been authorized by the state again. the infection rate starts to go down. I think this is something that we just monitor month to month.
Yeah.
And make a decision maybe a week out from each meeting of whether we're gonna do remote or not.
Well, yeah, because it has to be noticed that way, that's all, so I need,
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So, board members, if as we go through the month, you get concerns or think there's a reason, health-wise, why we need to go remote,
Can we
please
require,
reach out to Ronnie.
can we require anybody coming in person to the board meeting to be vaccinated?
I assume all of the board is vaccinated.
I want I want to get kind of more of a legal opinion on that. So why don't we follow up?
Yeah.
All right, history report.
Rhoda didn't have anything. It's been an eventful enough meeting. I'll give you a little short one.
Okay.
Here's the fun fact. The opera star Minnie Benzel lives on Cardinal Road. She was a star with the Metropolitan Opera and on Broadway. She was a huge community advocate. And that's, of course, the namesake of Miriam Benzel, on Broadway.
Thank you. All right, we had a lot of public comment already, but is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the meeting.
I'm coming every week, every month, so this is great.
Got an interesting.
Gary,
We usually don't have rats on the agenda.
I need a second.
Matt, second, yes.
Okay,
All in favor, say
all in
aye.
favor?
Aye. Any opposed, objections, abstentions? Thank you, everybody, have a good night. Josh, thank you for coming, Marcelo.
Good,